Welcome to Authentically You Podcast, the podcast that dives deep into a transformative journey of self-discovery, self-acceptance, and self-expression. I'm your host, Kirsty Hankin, and I'm here to guide you on a path towards embracing your true, unapologetic, authentic self. In this podcast, we'll embark on a quest to uncover the secrets to breaking free from societal expectations, shredding the masks we wear, and stepping into our own power. Each episode will explore the questions and challenges that our listeners face on their personal journeys, providing practical insights and heartfelt advice. But it doesn't stop there. Authentically You Podcast goes beyond just answering your questions. We're here to introduce you to a diverse lineup of incredibly knowledgeable professionals who will share their expertise, wisdom, and experiences. We'll bring you thought-provoking interviews that will inspire and empower you. This is Authentically You Podcast, unleashing life on your own terms. I'm Kirsty Hankin, and together, let's unlock the power within and live life authentically. Remember, you are not alone on this journey. We're in this together. Welcome to the Authentically You Podcast. I am so grateful and happy that you're here with us today. And today we have got the beautiful Norma in the house. And I want to just tell you a little bit about her before we get started. So Norma is a certified life coach and integrative nutritional health coach who specializes in helping women uncomplicate emotional eating through holistic life-based approach that encompasses mind and body so that they can end the diet cycle, binge cycle, and find food and body freedom. How incredible is that? Welcome to the podcast, Norma. Thank you so much for being here. How are you today?
I'm wonderful, and thank you so much for having me. I just love to talk about this because so many women struggle with it. And if there's just one thing that people take away from this show, I hope it's that we're not defined by our weight.
I
And
love that.
it took me a long time to realize that. I'm 54 years old and didn't come to that conclusion until I was about 49, 50, right around my 50th birthday. And I'm just so passionate about this. So I'm grateful for the chance to have a nice conversation about it.
We are loving it. Well, like I just told you off air, this is so up my alley. My weight fluctuates up and down all the time when I'm not out of alignment, when I'm not on my purpose or what I should be doing, the weight piles on. And then when I start back on my journey where I should be heading, the weight goes off again. So it's like an indicator, but like you, and like so many others, it's taken me, I'm 43, I think, at the moment, and it's taken me a long time to sort of realize this sort of information, not just weight, but like in general, like life hacks and life understanding yourself a little better. Tell us about yourself and how you got into this, and tell us your story.
Yeah, so gosh, I think I could probably pinpoint the exact day that I became aware of my body and that it was different, or at least I thought it was different from everyone else. And that was, I was 13 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at a public swimming pool with my friends. And I remember looking down as I was sitting on the side of the pool and seeing what appeared to be these gigantic thighs.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh my gosh, I was only 13. And what's really ironic about that, I probably weighed 100 and maybe 10 pounds soaking wet, But that's my first memory of really noticing my body and that it was, at least in my perception, different.
Yeah.
And as I continued to grow in, teenage years and into adulthood, I think looking back, I don't think anybody would have called me overweight, but in my mind, I was.
Mm-hmm.
And so much of my self-worth, I think I wrapped around what I look like in terms of my weight. And it just kind of progressed. The older I got, it became so important to me to uh, not be judged by other people. I had a
Mm-hmm.
terrible fear of judgment. And I wrapped that judgment all around my weight. And as I continued, on in life and got married and had my first child, I gained an enormous amount of weight with my first child. At the time, I didn't know it. It was because I had gestational diabetes. I was never diagnosed.
Wow.
And I
Okay.
gained about 90 pounds with that pregnancy. And it just continued with the second child. And gosh, by the time I was in my 40s, I was probably at the weighed more than I had in my entire life. I actually stopped getting on the scale. I'd gone to a doctor because I was sick, and they weighed, and I was 296 pounds. And I didn't get on a scale after that because I couldn't bear the thought of seeing it flip to 300. It
Understandable.
just
Yeah.
terrified me.
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward to about 2017, my youngest son, who was 21 at the time, was injured in an accident and became paralyzed. He's a paraplegic now.
Oh, sorry.
And
That.
that was kind of like my crying on the bathroom floor moment,
Yeah.
because certainly because of my son's injury, but I physically couldn't take care of him when he came home and needed all that rehab. I couldn't carry the wheelchair up the stairs for him so he could go to his bed. I couldn't lift his legs to stretch him. And that's when I decided, all right, you have to figure this weight thing out, because now it's physically preventing me from being a mom
Mm-hmm.
and in giving my child, who was an adult at the time, but still my child, the thing that he needed. So I found a weight loss coach. I had no idea what a coach was. It
Mm-hmm.
just was something I'd never done before. And so I thought, well, this is my last chance. And thank goodness I found the right person, but she focused not at all on the food. There was no meal plan, there was no exercise plan. She taught me how to do that deeper inner work and
Yeah.
kind of stand face to face with all the things I feared and start showing up for myself. And 18 months or so later, I'd lost 100 pounds and I was a completely different person. Not because of the weight loss.
Yeah.
That just turned out to be a
Totally.
bonus. It was
Yeah.
all the change that happened to me as a person.
Yeah.
And 50 years old, I'm finally confident. I don't care what people think of my size. I truly don't. But I was doing it for me and only me. And it was just such an amazing thing. I went on to become a coach because I learned the skill. I learned how to do these things. And it felt like just a crime that I wasn't sharing it with people and other women that struggled just as much as I did. So that's kind of how I got into the coaching. I got life coach certified and then moved on to the nutrition certification. And now I really focus on emotional eating because it's never about the food. It's
No,
never about the food. There's always something underneath. And that's the thing we need to fix.
it's incredible. I feel so similar. My journey's been sort of similar to you. Like I wasn't a huge child, but I was bigger than most of the other children around me.
Mhm.
And I think kids as well are just mean without even trying to be mean sometimes. And they would, not all the time, but one or two little things that they would say started it all for me. So I always thought I was bigger, I was fatter, but looking at the photos, I wasn't. It was just
I know. Isn't that amazing?
it's so incredible that you go through that, and I've been doing it my whole entire life.
Yep.
And when you said that your son was in an accident and you couldn't really look after him, I sort of feel the same way at the moment with my 3-year-old son. He has
Mhm.
got so much energy, it drives me insane that I can't keep up with him, and not necessarily
Yeah.
need to keep up with him to the extent that he is, but I just feel like a little bit of mum guilt that sometimes I'm like, okay, mum needs a rest now, and it hurts.
Yeah.
But you don't want to feel like that, do you?
No,
Oh,
exactly. And it just perpetuates all of that insecurity.
Yeah. And mum guilts are a real thing, aren't they? It's not just about
Absolutely.
that. So we want to try and get rid of all the mum guilts whatsoever. What's your sort of one thing, and I know that there'll be heaps of different ways
Mm.
for different people, but what's your sort of one thing that could help someone to get started essentially on their mind, body, soul journey to one?
Yeah. Boy, this might be
High
kind of,
pressure,
I hope
right?
this isn't a complicated one to start with, but I think it's always the best place to start is to really think about why. Why do you want this change? And I don't mean like, I want to lose weight because I want to wear different clothes, or I want to lose weight because, whatever the thing is,
Hmm.
it's deeper than that. It's a feeling. Like, how do you want to feel?
Yeah.
So what's your, how do you want to feel? Do you want to feel comfortable in your clothes, whatever they are? Do you want to feel confident walking into a room? I remember walking into a room and the first thing I did was scan the room to see if there was a woman in there that perhaps was larger than me, because then I could relax. And I'm not proud of that, but
Right.
it was just, I was so insecure with myself.
Yeah.
So that was one of the driving things for me when I sat down, got out my notebook and started to write down why. Why do I want to do this work? How do I want to feel? And that really kind of got the wheels turning and got me thinking about, well, what would I do if I felt that way? What would be different from today? And it's not about like the fake it till you make it. It's about living the way you want to live, regardless of your size today. If you want to feel confident, you have to practice. You have to practice feeling confident,
Yeah.
and it doesn't happen overnight by any stretch. But I think that's a really important piece, just to understand why you want to do this work, because it is work. We're so tied to these quick fix things, especially about our weight with
Oh, yeah.
diets, and maybe I'll even backpedal my answer a little bit. I think that's one of the first things to do this work and to do it really deeply. You have to set aside the diet. You just have to, and really look inside, because it's just too much conflict, too much inner conflict. When
Yeah.
you're trying to sort out all of the things going on inside of your brain and your body, and you're restricting your food, you're just causing more conflict. So set that diet aside and just commit to yourself.
That makes complete sense. And that makes also sense when, you've heard of the yo-yo dieters. They go put
Hmm.
on, lose all the weight, and then they put it back on, lose all the weight, put it back on. And that would purely because they haven't actually dealt with the emotional, the mental side of it, and the inside
Exactly.
traumas and things, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because when we emotionally eat, it's a coping mechanism.
Hmm.
And it's a pretty darn effective one too, because we wouldn't keep doing it if it didn't work. It soothes, it comforts. I mean, food is a part of our lives. We can't not have food. But when we can get underneath of that and find that thing that's triggering us to the food, it's some feeling within us. It's some insecurity, it's a fear, it's a feeling, you've heard of comfort eaters and stress eaters. We all have that in our lives all the time. So finding other coping mechanisms that don't always involve food is really the first step in kind of untangling it or uncomplicating emotional eating, is get to those emotions and deal with the emotion
Yes.
and try to find different coping mechanisms.
Hmm.
It's
Finding a different way, right?
tedious work, but boy, is it worth it.
Oh, absolutely. I think anything when you're working on yourself, it's a hard journey, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
like you said, there's lots of triggers. There's lots of triggers
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
often put you back into your comfort zone, and you can say, "Oh no, too much," and put you back into
Totally.
your comfort zone. But
Totally.
we need to sort of hit those triggers, figure out, dive deep into those triggers, and find out what's behind it, right?
Yeah, and that's what the diet industry misses completely.
Yes.
They give us the food plans and the exercise plans, but they never address the underlying issues that have triggered you to eat to begin with. So you might be able to willpower your way to your goal weight, whatever that is.
Yeah.
But what are you left with? You're the same exact person. You're just in a smaller body. You have
Yeah.
the same terrible boss. You have the same terrible job. The mother-in-law that drives you crazy. But you're just doing it in a thinner body, and you're
Yeah.
still going to be triggered by all those things.
Yeah.
So why not fix all those things along the way? That was the huge pivot that I had when I was working with my coach. When I realized that, I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah. I love the fact that we're talking about this because I've actually dabbled in coaching with people trying to lose weight before, and it was obviously my wrong path. It wasn't for me to do because the people that I was attracting were like, well, no, because I still need to do this. And every time that I was working with them about their inner work, they
Mm-hmm.
would do it and they would lose weight. But then they'd sort of put it back on. So I was like, this works. I know it works. I know this works. How am I doing this? How am I not getting through to these people? But they were the wrong people for me. They weren't my soul aligned clients. They weren't ready. Because another thing that anyone that needs to be coached or wants to be coached needs to be ready to have those hard questions asked about them in a nice way, because that's what us coaches
Yeah,
do. But they have to be ready and open, because if they're not ready to push through their sort of comfort zone, right, they're never going to see any
exactly.
changes.
And that's exactly why I encourage my clients to set aside the diet,
Mm-hmm.
because that's getting in the way.
Yeah.
We're talking about, like, if emotional eating is a coping mechanism and probably your primary coping mechanism, if you rip that away, it's like all of those feelings and emotions are right on the surface and you have no way to soothe them. So the diet becomes completely impossible. It's like your nervous system just completely dysregulates, and you end up probably eating more than you would have to begin with, because you've just now exposed all those emotions and given them no
Absolutely.
relief. So that's a lot of the work that I do with my clients, is finding, first of all, finding the emotion, what's the trigger, and then we work through that particular emotion, untangle it, find some new solutions, new ways to self-soothe, and eventually they get to a place where food is always an option, it always will be, but they have a whole bunch of other tools
Mm-hmm.
that don't always involve food. And sometimes it's only ice cream will do, and they've learned to become okay with that.
Yeah.
So nothing feels like a diet anymore.
I love that, because with societal expectations around.
Oh,
Yeah. Well, tell me
yeah.
about your thoughts are about the societal expectations around weight loss and everyone's sort of the perfect body, and how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, I think the diet industry is one of the few industries, I think, that actually make money on our failures.
Yeah.
One doesn't work, and then a new one comes out and will get you over here. And
So
it's,
true.
now that I can see it through that lens, I have to be careful to not beat myself up, because I fed that diet culture machine for years.
Same. Same.
But what's happening now, what I see is, and this is my opinion, but I think it's got even more complicated, because yes, we still have a very, very deeply ingrained diet culture and these expectations that thin is better. And you still see all the before and after pictures and all the Instagram posts and all that.
Yeah.
But there's also this other side of the spectrum now, like this anti-diet culture, where I'm aligning with a lot of what they're saying, but I kind of stop short when it becomes maybe a little controversial, but almost kind of condescending or a little passive aggressive, that
Yeah.
you shouldn't want to lose weight because we're healthy at every size. And that's true in theory, but I can tell you for sure, I was not healthy at my 300 pounds.
Yeah.
I had type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure. I know my body is healthier at a different weight. So I don't necessarily fall into that thinking that just just universally health at every
Yeah.
size is the thing. And I don't want to
Yeah.
be chastised by somebody because I choose to lose weight.
Yeah.
And that's where I think people get
I
hung
totally
up.
agree. I totally agree with that. I haven't actually heard of the anti-dieting side. I haven't even heard of that anywhere here in New Zealand. But I was going to say was I totally agree with you. If they're saying, you know, you are healthy at any size that you are, well, no, you're not. No, you're not. If you are obesely overweight, and I'm talking about, I think I am categorized as obesely overweight. I don't think I'm obesely overweight. I know I'm overweight, but I'm not obesely overweight.
I still am. I lost 100 pounds and I think I still classified as obese.
That that
It's
scale
just
really
silly.
drives me crazy how it is.
Yeah.
But what I was saying was, yeah, if you are really, really, really overweight and you've got all these health issues, like you just said, that is not, you are not in a healthy state. You're not, that doesn't categorize everyone. It is, yeah, for the majority, maybe the majority, but not for everybody,
Yeah.
is it? That's not
And that's one of the things I've tried to create in my coaching practice is that you're acceptable at any size. You have self-worth at any
acceptable.
size.
Yes,
I
that's
never
much
believed
better.
that. Believed it was the only way I was going to be acceptable was if I lost weight. And
Mhm.
by the end of that journey, I just realized, oh my gosh, it doesn't matter what my size is. I'm a deserving human as I am. And I believe that for everybody. But I'm also a human that can make a choice for my health to lose weight. And that's what I really, when I work with clients, I really spend a lot of time in the beginning digging through the why. Why are we
Yeah,
doing this? And getting to what's really underneath it.
yeah.
'Cause a lot of times it's the diet culture stuff on the top.
Absolutely. I can, it is sort of ingrained in you from, well, maybe not for people that have been slightly thinner throughout their whole lives and they haven't had any weight issues, but for the people that have had weight issues, that is definitely, definitely something that will be right on the surface. The
Yeah.
expectations of being thin and skinny and people saying one or two things to you, maybe lots of things to you, triggers things into your mind and it embeds into your like subconscious mind, and that's where your beliefs and habits sit and lie. So you start
Yeah.
believing it and holding on to it, and then you're flourishing even more. You're getting bigger because you're believing
Yeah.
things.
And that goes all the way back to childhood.
Yeah.
I mean, there was an experience or something was said that about your weight, maybe, or if you had a family that closely monitored your food, your caregivers, parents, grandparents, whatever, you started to make these connections very young
Mm,
about your weight and your worth and how you should look and shouldn't look. And you're right, it's absolutely, turns into this almost like a fear,
mm.
and you
Yes.
have to do everything that you can to prevent that from happening. And it stays with us and it just evolves with us as we grow up. And it's just fascinating when you kind of think back, like, oh my gosh, that comment that Uncle John said at the Thanksgiving dinner table, has stayed with me my entire life.
Absolutely. I remember not so long ago we had my niece who is 13 around, and I know that's a little bit older than when it all starts going in.
Yeah.
But we were having dinner, and my partner, she finished quite quickly, and he said to her, "Oh man, you smashed that, didn't you?" And the nicest, kindest, gentlest, no maliciousness about it. And
Oh,
I
of course
looked
not.
at him
Yeah.
and I went, don't say that to a female girl. Holy heck. So I had a word with him afterwards. He was like, oh, I had no idea. I was like, that's the sort of thing, just one little comment like that with no
Yep.
malicious intent behind it can stick into someone's mind and think, oh, I must eat, so I'm eating too much. The the internalizing of those thoughts can,
Very much.
yeah. And I was just blown away. I was like, oh no, what have I done? Because I know how it works, because I've been through it myself.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you get to finding that question? Not the question. How do you find the trigger, the why? How do you get to that way down deep inside them? Do they even know half the time, or is it lots of questions? How do you get there?
Lots of questions and lots of patience, because you're right, we don't always know. We don't always know what's behind it because we've been pushed it down for so long. And sometimes they do know, but don't want to bring it up because that's really scary. Really scary. So one of the things I asked my clients to try, because it was a technique that worked really well for me, is journaling.
Mm,
And not like a Dear Diary exercise like when we were kids, but just take a look at what you're thinking. Like the one exercise I do is around the negative self-talk. Like when you look in the mirror, what's the first thought that comes into your head? Or, catch those little times you call yourself names.
mm-hmm.
My favorite, I used to look in the mirror every morning and say, "Oh my God, look how fat you are."
Yeah,
And I did that almost every day of my life. So, of course, my brain made that connection that, yeah, she's fat. And I carried that around. But that was one thing that when I started to pull apart my negative self talk, like, first of all, just acknowledge that it was there
mm-hmm.
and then start to pull it apart and learn this little technique. Every time I heard myself say something nasty to myself, I would just say, "Nope, not today."
Yeah,
And I did it hundreds of times a day, over and over for weeks and weeks and weeks. And they started to quiet down. And when I realized that, oh my gosh, they're not so loud, they don't come near as often anymore, I was onto something.
yeah,
So I continued to write about things, just a little incident that might have happened at work that kind of made me, those old feelings of worthiness or not being worthy when they came up. I write about that situation, and it just helped me untangle it and bring it to the surface so I could deal with it.
yeah. And what does it mean? How do you actually go about dealing with it once it's at
Yeah,
this?
it's a tricky one. It's less about making it go away, and
Mm-hmm.
it's more about understanding it and understanding why. One of the things I work, especially with my emotional eating clients, is this idea that you have like these different parts of you. You have one part of you that really wants to be thinner and another part of you that really wants to have that cake after dinner. And there's always this conflict.
Yeah,
But it's understanding those different parts, that they're wanting those things for you for a reason. They're wanting to protect you and keep you safe from something. The part that wants you thin is the part that says you're not going to be acceptable unless you're thin, so you must stay on this diet. And there's this other part of you that's just like, I just want to have a piece of cake and just feel some comfort at the end of this day. You know,
yeah,
and just knowing that it's okay. And then it's like kind of, it's not like a therapy session or anything, but it's just recognizing that your feelings are there
mm-hmm.
and they're okay. They're not going to hurt you. And there's other ways to feel safe and protected. So it's a untangling. I always think of like a all these different colored electrical wires all jumbled up and you have to
Yeah.
pull them apart one at a time. It's kind of what it's like.
I saw a good thing on TikTok where a lady was explaining sort of how she deals with each individual trauma or trigger.
Hmm.
She gets this big glass bowl, scrunches up bits of paper, so they're nice big balls, and puts them all the way through it and says, "This is your mind. It is full of trauma and things that you're not dealing with. When you come to
Yeah.
a coach, we take one of them at a time. We don't do them all at once, and we unpack it. So we unfold it, we talk about it, we deal with it, and make it flat. So she makes it flat and puts still in her mind, but at the bottom. So it's creating less volume, noise,
Yeah.
that mind. So it's being dealt with, but it's still there. Like, we're never going to get rid of these, but it's still there, but it's just nicely unpacked and in control now. So at the end,
Yeah.
just layers of bits of flat paper rather than big balls all around your mind. And I
Yeah.
thought,
Oh, I love that.
yeah, it's exactly how, as a coach, we attack it. Attack, it's probably not the right word.
Yeah.
Delve in with it. And I think
What?
there is a delusion that people think coaching is like, oh, again, they want instant results for everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to just pick out all of it and deal with it and make life a whole lot messier. But it's not like that at all, is it?
No, that's one of the analogies I try to give them when we just start this work. Like, first of all, I remind them that this is not a quick fix. It's learning new skills, and it's going to take time and all this. So the analogy I use is most of us probably have a room or a closet in our house that's kind of a catch-all. Anything that you don't know what to do with, you just kind of open the door and throw it in and hope it doesn't land on you when you open it again.
Yeah, I've got a drawer like
So
that.
yeah, well, yeah, exactly. So when we start this work, it's like you can open the door and leave the lights off and kind of fumble around and probably knock things over, and you'll just keep tripping over them and you won't make a whole lot of progress. But this deeper inner work is like opening the door and turning on the light and just looking at everything.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I have to, and pick up one thing at a time and just look at it. Is this something that really needs to be dealt with right now? Probably not. Put that over here. And then
Yeah,
you find something, oh, this is the thing. This is what I need to work on. And then we talk about it and we get to the bottom of it slowly but surely. And eventually we've kind of cleared out the room. We've got a nice organized room. We've sorted out our thoughts about ourselves, and we've sorted out our goals and all of that. We've got it neatly organized. And now we can navigate in there and really feel comfortable and start to decide what to do with all this stuff. What do you want to throw out? What do you want to keep? What are we gonna just maybe set aside and deal with later? So we make those three piles, you know. And
like
it
that.
tends to really kind of take some of the pressure off, because
Yes.
you're right. They want quick and they want it all fixed
Yeah.
today.
But then they don't want to deal with it either. It's
Yeah,
too much
exactly.
audio. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of overwhelm.
Yeah.
A lot of overwhelm.
So what can you say? What can people expect to feel having released all the triggers and fixed all the emotional eating and things? How are they going to feel at the end of it once they've
I love
cleared
this
everything?
question. I think we all feel something different, but what it all boils down to, I kind of describe it like this, like before you got your shoulders up in your ears and you're walking around all tense, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's
Yeah.
just gone. It's just gone. And you don't have this horrible heavy weight around your neck anymore. And it's freeing. I remember the most freeing, liberating feeling I had was the day I deleted my Fitness Pal off my phone and
Ah,
stopped turning to an app to tell me what to eat and how much, exercise I should have, because I learned how to make those decisions myself for me, not because some app was telling me. So
yeah.
that's the kind of feeling. It's just, there's nothing better than walking into a room and not giving a thought to your size and having a conversation with a person and not worrying about what do you say next, because you have to say the right thing. It's just this, it's what we said in the beginning, it's this life encompassing change that happens. And I don't worry about the bag I carry to the office anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I carry what I like. I'm not going to go buy the Coach bag just because I thought that's what I needed to do to be acceptable. You know, one of the stories I don't order a shame salad anymore when I go out to eat with my coworkers and my friends. The shame salad is that
Yeah.
nasty little wilted salad, because you want everybody at the table to know you are very aware of your size and you're doing something about it.
Yeah.
No more. Yeah, it's there's so many things we do to ourselves that when we can release all that, it's just like you feel like you've lost 1,000 pounds off your body just by getting that emotional weight
Yeah.
gone.
So how authentic are you once you finish that journey?
You know, it's funny. I used to hate it when someone would tell me, "Oh, just be yourself." I didn't know who myself was. I had no idea. That question used to infuriate me because it's like not helpful. I don't know who I am. I don't know how I should. I always just was doing things because I thought I needed to. Dressed a certain way. I spoke a certain way. Wouldn't express my opinions until I was completely comfortable. It was the right opinion, the whole thing. And I think that's the greatest change. And I've said this a million times. I would take back every pound I lost if I could keep all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is what changed my life. That's it. The weight loss was a beautiful byproduct, but my life changed when I became authentically myself. I mean, the stress alone of having the right clothes or the right shoes or, the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's just, it doesn't matter anymore.
How did you get to that point when you knew you were being authentically you?
It kind of snuck up on me.
Yeah.
And it was just all of the work that I was doing with my coach at the time. And I know exactly when it was. I was in a boardroom and I hated those boardroom meetings as much as I wanted a seat at the table. Once I got there,
Yeah.
I all I could think about was how do I make myself small enough where nobody notices I'm here.
Yeah.
But it was in a boardroom one day, and I remember I walked in, and you know how everybody always takes the same seat.
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
just I decided I'm going to take one right smack in the middle of the table and be directly across from the people that I feared the most, the
Yeah.
executives. And I just sat down, we started having a conversation, and somebody asked a question and I just spoke up, and it without even thinking about it. And it almost, I mean, you could have knocked me off the chair with a feather. I was so like, who was that? And I just kind of went with it, and it kept
Yeah.
going. And I walked out and I thought, oh my gosh, this is working. That wasn't so scary. And it feels pretty darn good. And it was just once I had that one moment, it was all downhill from there. It
So,
was so much easier to show up and be authentically me.
yeah. I think we mentioned it before how, you know, you're expected, well, you put the expectation on yourself, don't you? Excuse me. That you need to look a certain way, you need to present yourself, you need to talk to you need to have the friends, you need to have the bag, you need to have this, you need to have that.
Mhm.
You don't need any of that.
Not
Don't
one
need
bit.
any of that. If it is authentically you to have that, absolutely. But really think about if that thing is something that you really truly want, or if it's something that you uh, think others will love you for or like you more for,
Mhm.
isn't it? You got to ask those sort of questions.
Yeah. And it's not even the physical things. One of the
Yeah.
things for me was like, for instance, at work, I would, I think I was trying to overcompensate for my weight by doing things for other people, by
Oh,
doing more work, working long hours, taking on everybody's go-to. Because I figured if I did that, they would they would still accept me even though I was overweight.
yeah.
And I moved up this ladder in my career, and I don't even like my career, to be perfectly honest with you. I realized that when this all started to come together for me. It's like I don't even like what I'm doing. But
Mm-hmm.
yet I was throwing my whole life into it. And I think that's such a crime that women feel the need to do those things.
I know. Yeah.
It
So,
and oh,
what age were you when you had this realization?
I was 50.
Yeah.
This was recent. This was like 4 years ago. And this is why I'm so committed to my coaching, because my coaching is going to retire me from that company. That's my decision in life, because this is what I want to do full time. I will do this 12, 14 hours a day happily,
Yes.
because this work is the work that makes a difference. And if there's
Absolutely.
one less woman in this world that suffered the way I did, I can help them. Sign me up. I'm there.
Oh, I love that, Norma. That is beautiful. And that's what we're here for. We're here to help humanity get better in whatever way
Right.
it is that we need to be doing it. And I think the way that you're approaching your purpose and your journey is phenomenal. I love it. Do you, before I ask you your cool little funky questions, do you have anything else that you would like to say to, or anything coming through that you want to express to or tell the audience?
I think it would be, and so I know there's some women that won't believe this, but your self-worth is not measured by a number on the scale or the size of your jeans. It's just not. You are worthy completely the way you are, and you deserve to show up in life the way you want to show up. It's not to say it's going to be easy to do if you're so far away from that you can't believe it's possible, but the work is so worth it, and it's life changing. That's, I think, the best thing, the way I can describe it.
I love it. It's beautiful because self-worth is something that needs working on, doesn't it? For
It
every
sure does. It sure
female.
does.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let me give you your first wonderful question of mine. If where is it? God, if authenticity was a color, what would it be for you and why?
Oh, I think it would be green.
Nice. Why?
And I'm not exactly sure why, but this is so strange that you asked this, because recently I changed all of my website, and everything has a kind of a green theme to it. It just felt so happy. I
Yeah.
don't think I was always I wore the blacks and the browns and the navy blues and all my adult life because I wanted to
You.
hide myself.
Yeah.
Green just feels expansive to me. So I think I would say green.
Green for you. Love it. Um, and if you could be an animal to express your true self, which animal would you choose and how does it represent you?
Oh, this is a tricky one. You know what? I have to say a cockatoo, a parrot.
Nice. Why?
I have always loved parrots, but there's something about, and I follow a particular cockatoo on TikTok,
Yeah.
and there's something about this little guy that he doesn't care. He's he's
Love it.
happy when he's happy. He tells us he's he expresses himself when he's unhappy. I just remember watching him and thinking, gosh, how cool would that be
Yeah.
to every moment of your life, not care at all what anybody thinks. You just bop around and do your thing, and you're
Bop
just
around.
happy.
I
Yeah,
can imagine.
exactly.
I can picture him. It's bopping.
You have an attitude, and doesn't matter.
Sass. Nice. And my last question is, if you had a magic wand that could change one thing for everybody in the world, making it has to be like a rule, what would that rule be?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. I think I would say, back to what I was talking about before, you're not allowed to talk to yourself meanly or in a nasty way. You're just not allowed.
Yeah,
Can't do it.
I absolutely love that. Having experience being a mind coach, I know how the mind works, and that
Mm,
is so potent. That is amazing. I'm going to give you 10 gold stars for that answer.
okay. Put it on a tote bag.
I love it. I love it. Now I know that you have something coming up for that you'd like to invite the listeners to, a little freebie. Do you want to explain what that is?
Yeah, so I have I hate the word webinar because it's really not. It's kind of a workshop. I'm going to be opening that up in August. I haven't quite nailed down the date yet, but definitely in August. It's called Ending Emotional Eating, but spoiler alert, you don't have to. And I'm going to take you kind of through the basics of understanding what emotional eating really is and where it came from in the first place and why do we keep doing it. We're going to talk through all of that. And then we'll kind of get to the end where everybody that participates will leave with one really solid tool to start working on figuring out or identifying, I guess, where emotional eating is showing up in their lives.
Brilliant.
So it's just a little taste of the work that we do together, but it's going to be fun. And I think we'll give a entirely different perspective to emotional eating, because it's not a character flaw. There's nothing wrong with you if you do it.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. That's a great start for anyone who may be a little bit interested or is ready to get started. This could be a good start for them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Norma, for being such a wonderful guest on the Authentically You podcast. You've been an absolute star, and I am going to put all your details as well as the workshop details in the show notes for everyone to have a look at. And if anyone's interested, please contact Norma directly. And thank you so much, Norma. You're amazing.
Oh, well, thank you. Like I said, I'll take any opportunity to talk about this because I'm just so passionate about it. So I appreciate it very much.
You have been amazing. It's been, awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of Authentically You podcast. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and gained some valuable insights. If you'd like to stay connected with us, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform and follow us on social media. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Kirsty Impact Coach, or Become Authentically You on the Facebook group. We'd love to hear your thoughts, feedback, and ideas for future episodes. Feel free to drop us a message or leave a review. Your input means the world to us as we continue to grow and improve. Remember, living authentically is a journey, and we're so glad and grateful to have you with us on this path of self-discovery and personal growth. Until next time, always remember to be true to yourself, embrace your uniqueness, and live life unapologetically, because you are truly remarkable just the way you are. This is Kirsty, signing off on the Authentically You podcast. Take care and keep shining bright.